And so what ends up happening is Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both their shoulders and went backward and covered the nakedness of their father. And their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. Okay, so we got a scenario here in Genesis, the 9th chapter, and I just stopped at verse 23. And what ended up happening was that the sons saw what was going on. Ham said, hey, Dad's uncovered in his tent. And Shem and Japheth said, okay, let's cover him up. And that's what Shem and Japheth did. Now, what ends up happening is, in verse 24, and Noah woke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done unto him. Now, let's see what Noah says in verse 25. And Noah said, cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. Wait a minute. It was Ham that saw his nakedness, but somewhere between the time Ham saw his father's nakedness and the time Shem and Japheth came and covered their father, Canaan has done something that the Bible doesn't specify. All we know is Noah wakes up and he finds out Canaan did something. And he said, what? Canaan, not Ham, mind you. Canaan be cursed, he's going to be a servant. And now there are people that say, well, you know, black people are descendants of Canaan, and that's why they're black people that were servants of servants, or slavery. Now that was the next one. Now we've already found out two so-called explanations of so-called slavery, or the position of black people on the planet on a spiritual level, were not true. The first one was, of course, that black people were under a mark on Cain, the descendants of Cain. Well, we found that wasn't true. Now we hear that black people were cursed because of the curse on Ham. Well, we just read in the Word in Genesis chapter 9 that Ham was not cursed. And now we're looking at this so-called curse on Canaan, where he's a servant of servants. Well, that's very interesting. But again, there's a problem. There's a contradiction here in the Word of God. Because if we look very carefully at the children of Ham, we find out that Ham, and that's in Genesis, the 10th chapter, the 6th verse, it gives us his children. So it says, the sons of Ham were Cush, and Mizraim, and Put, and Canaan. Now, if we look at the order of this, we see that Canaan is the youngest of 4 sons. And that means that when it said in Genesis, the 9th chapter, when Noah woke up and found out what his youngest son had done, we know that Ham was not Noah's youngest son. It must mean Ham's youngest son. And we see in the order here that Cush, Mizraim, and Put, and Canaan was the youngest one. But let's back up a little bit. Who's the oldest son of Ham? Well, the oldest son is Cush. There's another name that the Greeks describe Cush as, or the Cushites. They were called by the Greeks Ethiopians. The word Ethiopian means burnt skin or black. So the Greeks, who came much later, said, hey, the Cushites, yeah, they were some great people. They're black people. And as a matter of fact, it's through the Cushites, and also we see Mizraim. Who's Mizraim? Mizraim's Egypt. And Egypt was named or called by the ancient Africans Kemet. So we have the Kemetics. So we have the Cushites, we have the Kemetics, we have the people of Put, who were in the lower part or the middle part of Africa, which is called alkebu-lan. And we find out in the Word of God that these children of Ham were the first children to create cities. So while Shem and Japheth were basically nomadic people. They were doing a lot of